Hello and welcome to KGW News at 5 o'clock. And we begin here with new pandemic restrictions in Washington. Governor Inslee announced today the statewide mask mandate is expanding. Starting August 23rd, all people will have to wear masks indoors in public places, regardless of vaccination status.
The governor also announced most workers in education will have to get vaccinated. That includes K through 12, most early learning and childcare, and higher education. The vaccine mandate covers public, private, and charter schools. Workers will have until October 18th to get vaccinated or risk losing their jobs.
We are going to keep saving lives by using the effective tools at our disposal. And we should talk to our teachers. We love them, we respect them, we need them. We should not allow them to make a decision that's bad for their health and bad for our kids.
Unions will be able to bargain for workers to get time off to receive the vaccine and recover from any side effects. However, there will be no option to be frequently tested for COVID instead of getting vaccinated.
Portland Public Schools also announced it will require all employees to get the COVID vaccine. Workers must submit proof of vaccination by the end of the month. Classes start on September 1st. Now, some staff may qualify for an exemption, but those employees will have to get regular COVID tests until they are vaccinated.
I think it's absolutely the right decision to make. We know that vaccines work. And I think that in Oregon, we are so fortunate that early this year, the governor made that decision to allow educators and school staff to have an opportunity to get vaccinated. And I think the overwhelming majority did it as soon as possible.
The Portland Association of Teachers says 98% of its members are already vaccinated. PPS is the first district in Oregon with a vaccine requirement, but educators believe it will not be the last.
Meantime, the CDC has announced a plan to give booster shots to anyone who got the Pfizer or Moderna vaccines. They're recommending the booster 8 months after you got the first 2 doses.
We know you have a lot of questions about this, so Tim Gordon spoke with some local health experts to get you those answers.
First, a third dose for those with vulnerable immune systems, and now a booster plan for the rest of us.
The thought is if you give us a booster dose, that really augments your immune system so that you have that enhanced protection.
Infectious disease physician Katie Scharf says if we got our initial doses, we are in great shape when it comes to the risk of severe COVID illness, hospitalization, and death. But data shows at 8 months, protection starts to wane. So say you got your second dose on August 18th, 8 months later, April 18th, 2022, it would be time to get a booster of Pfizer or Moderna. Experts recommend you get the same brand you got initially, but if you can only get a booster dose with the other, you can. Now, a lot of you have asked, what about the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine? So far, there is no booster recommended, but that could come if more data shows it makes sense. And what about getting the flu shot? Aileen wrote me on Twitter saying, we are supposed to have a 2-week space between other vaccines, so should we plan flu shots accordingly? Dr. Stephen Krager with Clark County Public Health says that guidance has been dropped.
So if it's going to be convenient for you to get, your booster COVID-19 shot and your flu shot at the same time, that might work really well for you. And there's nothing wrong with that.
So when it comes time, be ready. Healthcare workers were some of the first to be vaccinated early on, so they would be among the first up for booster shots in just a few weeks. Right now, many are working overtime in overburdened hospitals.
So I think it's just more of a feeling of exhaustion, just on a day-to-day basis. But absolutely, I know I've had several of my colleagues ask about their booster doses, and they are eager to get them when they become available.
Finally, both doctors we spoke with say as important as booster shots are, the unvaccinated getting their first shots is still the key.
Critically, from a public health standpoint, protecting our hospital capacity, getting unvaccinated people is more important right now.
And we are never going to get out of this until that group of individuals goes and gets their vaccine.
Tim Gordon, KGW News.
With school just a few weeks away, Multnomah County is hosting back-to-school vaccination events to help families and kids out. The free events not only give people 12 and older the opportunity to get a COVID-19 vaccine, but it also helps get kids up to date on required school immunizations.
with school starting up in just a few weeks, we want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to come in, get their vaccines, get caught up. And then, of course, we all know that COVID's on everybody's mind. And with the Delta variant, we want to make sure that we have COVID vaccines readily available.
The county will host another back-to-school vaccination event next week on Tuesday. It will be from 9 to 4 at the Arbor Lodge location on North Denver Avenue.
Now on the topic of back to school, our Verify team has been getting plenty of questions about returning to class. Our Kristen Severance has tonight's Verify.
We've been getting a lot of questions as parents and kids get ready for back to school, from masks to vaccinations to what happens if you test positive for COVID. So we set out to verify this. Will teachers and students have to quarantine if they test positive for COVID? Our sources for this story: the Beaverton School District, Lake Oswego School District, Portland Public Schools, Reynolds School District, and the Salem Kaiser School District. We also checked in with the Oregon Department of Education on this, or ODE, and let's start there. So they have an extensive flow chart listing out all of the possible scenarios if a student or teacher tests positive, if they are vaccinated or unvaccinated. You can find the chart right now on our website. These are all just recommendations, though. It's really up to the individual districts, and all of the districts that we reached out to told us this: if a teacher tests positive for COVID-19, it does not matter if they're vaccinated or unvaccinated, yes, they will have to quarantine for at least 10 days. So that's for a positive test. What about exposure? According to state recommendations and the districts we checked with, if you are exposed to someone who tests positive and it's deemed you had close contact with that person, if you are fully vaccinated and you don't show any symptoms, you will not have to quarantine. Now, if you are showing symptoms, you will have to quarantine. If you are unvaccinated and you come in close contact with someone who has COVID, you will have to quarantine. According to the Oregon Department of Education, 14 days is considered the safest option, but your local public health authority may advise a shorter isolation window. Again, a lot of scenarios to go through. You can read all of the different scenarios outlined by the state on kgw.com. But back to our original question: if a student or teacher tests positive, they do have to quarantine for at least 10 days, regardless of vaccination status. Do you have a question you want us to verify? I'm sure you do. As students head back to school, let us know. Just email us at verify@kgw.com.
Doctors say one of the biggest differences in the pandemic right now compared to, say, a year ago is the patients. For the most part, they are significantly younger and unvaccinated. That's the case at the ICU at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle and many other hospitals.
Now we're seeing almost only younger people. We're seeing people from their 30s to their 50s. More than 90% of the patients, in fact, I think almost all the patients in our hospital now are unvaccinated patients. People who should otherwise be in the prime of their lives, who don't really have medical problems, are coming in with COVID and very severe forms of it.
Medical workers also say having to treat another surge of COVID patients is taking a mental toll in a pandemic battle that has stretched now for a year and a half.
A grieving family reminds us those who've died from COVID are more than numbers. Vivencia Walden died in January, one of nearly 6,300 people killed by coronavirus in Washington. As Morgan Romero tells us, her daughter asked people to put their differences aside and be sensitive to those who have lost loved ones.
Robin Walden's face lights up when she talks about her mom.
She was very fierce and she was opinionated. She always spoke her mind, and she was a great cook. Yeah, she was a really good mom.
Was. Robin says her mom, Vivencia, got COVID after hanging around friends or family during the holidays and during the winter surge. Other family members got really sick then too. Vivencia had trouble breathing and went to Peace Health Southwest Medical Center in Vancouver January 2nd.
There was a point where she was doing better, and I think I kind of got my hopes up because my grandmother, my uncle had gotten better, and my aunt. And I was just waiting for my mom to get better and get released, and she just never was.
She was so sick, she was put on a ventilator.
I think that was like the scariest moment. It was very real. It was a really dark day, dark night for me personally and my whole family.
Robin and her sister got to say goodbye before Vivencia died January 17th.
I'm really lucky that I had my sister there and we had each other, but It was really sudden. I didn't really prepare myself for saying goodbye, and seeing her in the hospital like that was really hard. I hope that she knows that she wasn't alone and that we got to say goodbye and she could feel us and hear us.
7 months later, Robin and her siblings are still grieving.
It's a process.
Reminded every day of the disease that took their mom's life.
Whatever your opinion is about all of this, remember there's people behind this that have lost somebody. It's not just a number.
The family begs people to be safe and get vaccinated so no other families have to go through this.
If you're able and willing to get the vaccine, please get vaccinated. My mother wasn't around to take the vaccine, but if she was here, she would have definitely gotten it and could have still been here.
Been here to love on her new grandkids. Robin's brother just welcomed a baby, and Robin is due in 3 months.
You need your mom, and during a time like having a baby, I think you need them the most. My main focus is just preparing myself for motherhood, and I'm also still grieving my mother, so those journeys are coinciding right now.
Morgan Romero.
She's like a guardian angel, and she's watching over me and our family.
KGW News.
I'm sure she is, and we send Robin and her family our deepest sympathies. Almost 2 months since our historic heat wave in June, Multnomah County is detailing where it fell short in protecting people and how to improve. Officials just released preliminary findings on the county's response. Devin Haskins reports.
3 days of continual record-breaking heat. June 26th through the 28th, high temperatures range from 108 degrees to 116. 62 people in Multnomah County died from heat-related illnesses. That's more than all of the state of Oregon in the last 20 years.
It was a wake-up call.
Multnomah County officials released the 25-page after-action report on Tuesday. The preliminary findings detailed missteps the county made and ways they plan to improve. Even with weeks of planning, the report states the need for cooling centers overwhelmed the county's planned response. During a typical heat wave, the county says around 50 people use all the cooling centers. But during the June heat wave, 1,400 people stayed overnight at the 3 large cooling centers. The county admits cooling centers don't work for everyone, and in the subsequent heat waves, opened additional centers.
We looked at where the heat islands are in our community and wanted to make sure that we had locations near there, so people weren't having to get transportation to get a ride way across town, that they had something close to where they live.
The report says future actions will include increasing the amount of cooling centers, increase the volunteer and staff pool to run those centers, and develop ways to increase safety for those that stay at home without cooler air.
And we're working closely with our members of the Oregon delegation, our state representatives, to look at removing barriers to allow people to have air conditioning units in their apartment buildings.
The report also highlights the massive outreach as well to keep people safe. Nearly 100 outreach teams distributed more than 67,000 water bottles, 14,000 cooling towels, 8,000 bottles of sunscreen, among other items.
I would like to think that our efforts that weekend helped many people, may have saved lives. But I just want to say that there is no comparison for that particular response.
Going forward, Multnomah County says that they'll activate the cooling centers at the first sign of extreme heat. They recently activated their public alert system, sending out mobile phone alerts and text messages. And they also want to make sure that 211 will have enough resources going forward to make sure that they can meet the overwhelming demand for information. I'm Devin Haskins, KGW News.
We have also learned a second person died during the more recent heat wave from last week. The victim is a Portland resident who died on August 16th. No other details are being released right now. The investigation will take weeks to finish. The death of the other heat wave victim on August 15th is also still being investigated.
We want to let you know we're out with the final episode of our true crime podcast, The Yellow Car. Pune Gray has spent 32 years trying to prove that her dad did not kill her mother. Episode 8 looks at where Pune's investigation stands today. The Clark County Sheriff's Office has a detective investigating the case. Pune and her attorney are hopeful the prosecutor will decide any day now on whether to reopen that case and pursue new suspects in the 1989 murder.
Do you see it both ways? It's also vindicating your dad and helping his honor as well?
Yes, but my focus is my mom, and getting her killer. And like I've told the DA's office, then they can take over what happened to my dad. In the hopes that it doesn't happen again to someone else.
This week's episode also features a compelling interview with Gray's brother, who was just 14 when their mother was murdered. The Yellow Car is available now wherever you get your podcasts. You can also learn more about the case at kgw.com/theyellowcar.